reform places a time limit on state assistance. The sweeping changes will remove the safety net from thousands of Michiganders. Will also tackle the controversy surrounding the anti-bullying law. And should motorcyclists ride helmet free? We'll discuss on West Michigan Week. And thank you for joining us on West Michigan Week. On the panel, flying solo, Jim Harger from the Grand Rapids Press. Thanks for stopping by. And State Representative Dave Agema, Republican, Granville. It's been a while, my friend.
It is.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. Getting older, need glasses, but other than that, I'm doing fine.
Let's not talk about the ailments.
Okay.
Let's talk about fixes.
All right.
You've been a big proponent of fixing Michigan's welfare system. Welfare reform is underway. There have been a couple of snags in the last month or so. Where do you come down on this? And I know you've been pushing for changes.
Well, I came down on change because we had to, a lot of the states around us here, you know, have a 2-year limit and so forth. So we made a 4-year, 48-month limit on it. And there was originally people complained about that because they didn't get about the right kind of notice. When DHS sent out their notice, they didn't give them the information on how to appeal. But actually, the first group that was sent that information received 3 letters and 1 phone call. And as a result of that first grouping that was sent out, we had about, of the 11,000, 1,400 people called in. Is this really going to happen to me? Yeah, it's really going to happen. And they encouraged them, you know, we got work training programs you can do, and only 8 wanted help finding a job. Now that has since changed, because now they know we're serious about it, so people are looking to try to find, through the JET program, that's, you know, education and training and jobs. They're looking for a job because they know it's going to end.
Is there a little bit of a trap here, though? There are those who have been in the system, the chronic receivers of welfare, and then there are those who have lost their jobs recently, or maybe they've lost jobs, they've received some welfare, they've left welfare, they've come back.
Right.
How do you evaluate that when you can't just broad brush everybody?
You can't, but there are many, many programs. I think if you added them all up, you got 27 or 28 different programs in the state. But if I can, just give you an example. A family of 3, and I got a list here. A mom with 2 kids, a single mom. She can qualify for FIP, which is cash assistance, for about $490 a month. She can qualify for jobs, education, and training. That's the JET program. She qualifies for a CDC, the child daycare subsidy, and we're paying up to, I believe, 40 hours a week for that. She qualifies for FAP, which is food assistance. That's about $520 a month. She can qualify for free and reduced price school lunches for her kids. She can qualify for monthly rent assistance through HUD, around $500. There is a waiting list for that, but that's available. Then there's Medicaid. There's crisis assistance that can include heat assistance, electrical assistance, property tax assistance, rent assistance, and even shut-off notices. There's home weatherization. There's even employment support services where you can get, they'll purchase a car for you if you don't have one, and then repair that car for so much a year. And then there's work clothes and work tools. So there is a host of programs out there for people to try to get them to work. The incentive for many of these people has been not to get off. And that's why, as a DHS Appropriations Chairman, I said, what can we do to give these people incentive to work? So one thing we did add to this program, which most people don't know about, is the program where we let them work more than 25 hours. For example, if the newspaper man here was working minimum wage, if he works more than 25 hours, he wouldn't be able to qualify for some of these things. So we said, I tell you what, we're going to spend $10 million more. We're going to let him work up to 37 hours, make an extra $7,000 a year. But the caveat is, and still receive this assistance, but the caveat is, if he's offered full-time employment, he has to take it. And if he doesn't take it, he's off welfare. So I'm encouraging people to work rather than sit home. We have found some as many as 16 years.
Any of these alternatives you listed, or these additional elements of the safety net, you have in your sights you want to get rid of now that you've made this achievement on welfare benefits?
Do I have what in sight now?
Do you want to get rid of any of the other programs you mentioned, the assistance programs that are still available?
We're looking at those and seeing which one of those have any waste, fraud, and abuse. Every one of them has waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, we can talk about the bridge card. What's on the bridge card? You got cash assistance, you got food assistance, you got disability assistance. We talked about a little early, just before we went on air, with the students. Students in the state of Michigan has been a problem for several years, but it's just epidemic proportions in the last 2-3 years. I looked into that and discovered that students were on food assistance that should not be. They come from wealthy homes, they're claimed by their parents, they're not on a work-study program, they're not working more than 20 hours, which is a requirement for the federal program, and they were still on it. It's too easy to get. They can lie on an application, they can do it on a kiosk. So when we ended that and looked at it, we discovered, we thought we had 20,000 students, it was actually 30,000 students, 10 times more than the state of California. It was basically, we were teaching these kids how to be welfare queens before they got out of college. That's wrong. It's just plain wrong.
Tell the story here. I think it's intriguing how you managed to move this forward.
Prior to this last term that I got elected in under the Granholm administration, I had brought this up and brought this up and brought this up. I got nowhere. I could get nowhere. They did not want to touch this program. So thankfully to organizations like yours and the newspaper and Channel 3 and Channel 8, Channel 17, I called them all and said, hey, go down to these schools and just do some interviews. Find out how many kids are on full ride scholarships coming from wealthy families that are on food assistance, $200 a month, and see ones. So they did. And then they came to my home, they did an interview. They interviewed, how is this happening? I explained it, and I said it has to stop. So we figure right now we saved approximately $75 million just on that program. To me, this is probably just the beginning, because there's even a bigger problem in the general public on the bridge cards. Because if I have a bridge card now that looks just like a credit card, I can hand it to you and say, here's my 4-digit PIN, pay me 50 cents on a buck. You pay me the cash, you can go buy whatever you want to buy with it. I can use that cash to buy drugs, alcohol, whatever I want to do. That's what goes on daily, all the time in this program. So we came up with a whole bunch of solutions to that. One of my solutions was to put a picture on the bridge card. That was not very well received by this administration, but I figured at least that way, when you look at that picture like a driver's license, they could say, hey, this is not Joe Blow, this is somebody else. However, then the feds get involved and they say, okay, if you have that picture, then you're going to have to ask for a picture ID for anybody that uses any other kind of credit card because you're discriminating, they said. So we had to kind of let that one go. But we did come up with other things that we found. For example, we found people that were on outstanding warrants, wanted for felonies, that were still on bridge cards and we were paying for it. We found prisoners in jail that had a bridge card and they were giving it to their girlfriend or whoever, and they were using their bridge card because they had a 4-digit PIN. We found bridge cards are being used in casinos. I mean, if you're really poor and you're really having a hard time, you don't go to a casino with your bridge card.
Do you have any estimates of how widespread the abuse, fraud, and waste on bridge cards are? You mentioned 30,000 college students. Some of them, I'm sure needed the help and were able to use the help.
Most not.
Most not. Now the whole universe of bridge card users in Michigan, do you have any sort of estimate, idea of what level of
We're just getting into this because, and I've told Corrigan, the head of DHS, I said, we're just scratching the surface here because this abuse is just rampant. I mean, I get it, somebody emails me a receipt that they got of 8 lobster tails, 4 T-bone steaks, and something else for $144, and it was a bridge card. Now, come on. Is that what poor people eat? Is that what they're going to use it for?
But I'm also hearing from, in my church, we're involved in a food pantry, and we're hearing our food pantry is getting hit up more and more often. It's busier than ever. The registration of new applicants is higher than ever. Surely you would agree people are going hungry or don't have the cash for food.
There is a bigger problem because of the unemployment. We have 11.1% unemployment. Now, we went from 43rd worst state to do business in the last 8 months to number 16. Our goal is to get people to work so they don't need this. So already businesses are just starting to hire because they see a little light at the end of the tunnel. The government's being a little easier on them with the taxation system that we had. The old MBT and the surcharge was absolutely the worst tax, I think, in the history of the state of Michigan, probably in the United States. So when we got rid of that, Now they know they're just going to pay 6% tax on basically gross profits. So people are starting to hire a little bit, but I still fear what's going to happen in the federal government that may drop us into another double-dip recession, which could hurt us again. Yes, there are people in need. However, let's just look at, again, if you look at the qualifications for food assistance, for example. To get food assistance, it's 130% of poverty level on the money-wise. So for a family of 3, for example, means that that person can make $2,008 a month or $24,096 a year, anything less than that, and qualify for food assistance.
Where would you set it?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with that number. I'm just saying that I want to help the people that are truly in need. And to do that better, I have to get people off the system that don't belong in the system because they're draining the system. I have a friend that ran a muffler man shop. And he says, "What's wrong with this picture, Dave? This lady comes in here and tells me to put $900 in her car because it's being paid for by the state. She has a Lexus in the summer and she has an SUV in the winter. Now, is that person truly in need?" That brought us to our asset test. We just put an asset test in for this. And I'm thinking if a person's got $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of vehicles, and a person may even have a boat, a motorcycle, even a second home, and we don't include that, that means I have another person over here that's working his tail off, making $30,000, $33,000 a year to provide for his family, is now paying taxes to support somebody that's actually much more wealthy than he is. That's the waste, fraud, and abuse that I'm going after in this system. So the asset test looks at those things.
And that's where you kind of fall into the gray area because you see the extremes, but those extremes aren't the majority, I think. And that's where how much effort goes into addressing those extremes. I mean, where do you draw the line and how much do you spend doing that?
Well, that's what we're looking at the asset test for. The bigger question is, and he's right on when he says, look at the churches, and our church does the same thing. The food pantries are getting empty. Some of the people in our church are making 40% less than they were 2-3 years ago. They're still surviving, but they need a little help. I'm willing to help as much as I can. But again, when I ran for office, I ran on 3 basic principles. One, I wanted to stop illegal immigration just because of my background in the military and the airlines. And I also wanted to stop onerous laws and taxes. And I don't want to tax people more than I have to in a recession to pay for people that don't need this help. So everywhere I look in my budgets, whether it's DCH, DHS, or transportation, I look for waste, fraud, and abuse. That's the first thing I look for. If I can erase some of that, I will have more money to help people that truly need it. So we have programs set out now where people can call DHS and they can say, this is my situation, this is how much money I make, this is where I live, what kind of help can you give me? And they'll help them.
Yeah. We're about to go to break here, but before we go, back to the asset issue here.
Sure.
You know, you could be working and you've worked hard, you have a good car, good vehicle. I mean, you're going to need that to find another job also.
Yeah, under that new change. Now, originally said if you had a $15,000 car or more, you had to sell that car and get something less. Now, that's just been changed. Now the first car doesn't count. So technically, you could have a $100,000 Lexus and then you could have a $5,000 Ford and you'd still qualify. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's the way they just changed it for DHS.
Well, I wish that were the case for me. I'll keep driving that sexy poor man's car. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with State Representative Dave Agema. And we're back with State Representative Dave Agema, Republican, Granville. We'll pick up on the welfare reform here. There are changes that are coming, and then we'll get into a few other juicy
We already
issues.
talked about the 48-month limit. Everybody knows about that. We also incorporated a 3 strikes and you're out policy because we had people that were not performing what they're supposed to do under the JET program, looking for education or jobs or training, and were not doing what they said they were going to do through DHS. The first time they miss, they're off for 6 months. The second time they miss, they're off for 12 months. The third time they miss, they're off permanently. So if you're out there and listening to this, don't do it. Do what you say you're going to do and look for those jobs and get that training. And I talked about the increase in the what they call the earned income disregard, where you can work up to 37 hours. That's a good thing. If your employer knows that you're on minimum wage and you were before only working 25 hours, ask for more hours because it won't cut you. We're also required to verify the status now of each applicant through the SAVE program, Systematic Alien Verification Entitlement. So we're going to make sure illegals aren't getting this benefits, which shouldn't get it. So basically that's what we're doing. If you have questions, call the DHS, the local DHS, and they'll do their best to get you whatever you need. And there are also a lot of church organizations and local organizations that will help you as well.
All right, we'll switch gears here real quick, and I know this has been a hot topic in the last few weeks. The anti-bullying law made it through the Senate. There was a line about religion and using. What was the line? Maybe you
it said this. Basically, I'm paraphrasing here, if you have a strong religious belief, and what they're trying to do is protect your right to say, for example, I don't believe homosexuality is right, that basically that would not be considered bullying. That's what the intent was. But then people would say, well, then they could start calling them names and everything else. This could get out of hand.
So the Senate basically makes the national spotlight in the last week. It's
Correct.
been out there. A number of the networks have picked up on the story. So now the Senate passes the bill. That version comes to the House.
Right.
That line gets taken out.
That line gets taken out and they put a different bullying bill in. But I was one of the 10 or 12 that voted against it anyway. I did a little study on this, and bullying has occurred since day one. I'm not saying I agree with it. I don't think people should be bullied. But where does it end? I called my ISDs. I talked to school teachers. I talked to people on school boards. They said, please don't give us any more law upon law. Don't give us any more requirements to report to the state, because we're going to spend all our time doing the paperwork, and it gives us another opportunity to get sued by parents. So I looked at it, and then I also saw some studies that were done in 2004, 2005 by PhD in school psychology, and they say, guess what? All these states are jumping on this program because it's a politically correct thing to do, but do they work? And he did a very extensive study on it and says, guess what? They don't work. They simply don't work. There's a lot more things involved. So my attitude is parents need to be parents. Bullying starts at home. If it's allowed at home, they're going to do it on the playground or wherever they might be. And that's another thing. For every 10 people you have, you'll have a different idea what bullying is. I mean, some kid will come in, he pushed me, that's bullying. Now we're going to fill out a report and we're going to send that into the Department of Education. The schools, the teachers, and the parents, and the school boards should deal with this. We have 90% of the schools in the state of Michigan right now already have a policy set out by the education system that they use. They don't need another law. That's my point. It's already there.
Would you have voted for the bill as it came out of the Senate?
I wouldn't have voted for the bill no matter how it comes out, because I feel that it's just another regulation that schools don't need. At the school board, the school, the teachers, and the parents can deal with this. They've been dealing with it for 150 years or more. They can deal with it now. And again, when somebody kills himself like the individual did, there's more to it than just school. Most of your bullying occurs outside in the media, on Facebook, where it spreads into the school. How are you going to stop that? You can't stop that in the school. So it's not just the schools. And I contend that the biggest problem we have in schools today is parental involvement. So I don't think giving the schools another bunch of things they have to do to try to solve this problem, they're just going to have more of this kind of stuff, paperwork to fill out for the state that's not going to solve the problem. They're going to spend their time in the paperwork to protect themselves, not dealing with the issue.
You want parental involvement, just not
Absolutely.
not that parental involvement.
I don't want all the paperwork and law upon law, because it doesn't work.
Just switch gears. The legislation that you got through the House to stop same-sex unmarried benefits in colleges or state universities.
All public employees.
All public employees, yeah. Do you want to take this farther? Do you want to take this to agencies that that have government contracts, cities that?
It would apply to any government entity, any state employee. It would apply to schools to the extent of the constitutional law.
What about cities, villages?
It would apply to them as well. And
What
the
about
reason is this.
companies that have government contracts?
I can't deal with them. They're private companies.
Okay.
So that would not apply to them. They can do whatever they want to do. This has legal precedence. The people voted in 2004 Defense of Marriage Act that marriage was between a man and a woman. Item 2, the Attorney General ruled in 2005 for purposes of benefits for state employees, it cannot be paid. Then in 2008, the Supreme Court ruled the same. So it is illegal in the state of Michigan. So what happened here? For a long time, most colleges didn't do this. 4 or 5 years ago, they didn't, because I was on higher ed. I went to Wayne State. They were one of the first. Grand Valley didn't, Western didn't. They all gradually jumped on the bandwagon because they found out Wayne State, then Michigan State, U of M all got away with it. So this is illegal. It's as simple as that. And we have the people's vote, we have the Attorney General opinion, we have the Supreme Court. So this was just put on us this year by the Civil Service Commission, knowing we have a budget crisis, and they dumped this on us. What is this going to cost us? $7,000, $10,000 a person? I can just tell you, in some of my districts, for school teachers, for example, it's costing me $18,000 per teacher for their health care.
How much, for you, how much of this is a moral issue? How much of it is a financial issue?
Well, it makes no difference what it is for me, because the issue is it's a matter of law. And the law is on my side, not on their side. So if you want to get a referendum, have the people vote on it again, that's fine. Do that. But right now, they're breaking the law. And they try to hide behind the fact that we are a college. You can't tell us how to spend the money. So what actually happened before this is, I said, okay, I'm going to automatically take 5% away from all the colleges. And December 1, that was originally the way this started, I'll give it back to you if you're not breaking the law and you're not giving those same-sex benefits. Well, the governor didn't want it that way. He wanted it in a bill form. He said, you put it in a bill form, I'll sign it. I put it in a bill form. We'll see what happens.
And we'll, again, go in another direction here.
Okay.
Anybody ride a motorcycle here?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the law as it stands today?
Well, what they did, contrary to what a lot of people think, they did some studies, and I'm not on that committee, but they looked at other states that don't have helmet laws, and they tried to compare how many more head injuries did it have have any more or less. It was negligible. And the other aspect was monetary. We have a lot of people, doctors and lawyers, that are in these groups that drive motorcycles. They don't come to Michigan because we have a helmet law. They go everywhere else, they just avoid Michigan. So it became a tourist issue as well. So now they're looking at, if you're going to not wear a helmet, you're going to have to take a little bit more insurance out, because we don't want the state to have to pay if you get hurt.
As a reporter, I've been at the scene. I've seen the gray matter.
It's pretty bad.
It's not pretty.
No.
Where is this data that says, hey, I'm not going to come to Michigan because
Oh, look
there's
at
a
the
helmet
ABATE
law?
folks. ABATE, just look them up on the internet and they'll get you the data. Because they don't come. They just don't want to come to Michigan. They don't want to be hassled with it. So,
Is there some truth, though, to the point that, these injured people end up in the emergency room and somebody's going to pick up the tab?
of course there is. But on the same token, I remember years ago they said, you should wear a seatbelt, but we'll never make it a law. And suddenly we made it a law. Now we charge you $100 or whatever it is for not wearing a seatbelt. The question is, I spent 26 years of my life in the military for this country to protect freedoms. And now big government always wants to tell you what you have to do, what you can't do, what you can't say, and it just gets to a point where I say enough is enough. If a person doesn't want to wear a helmet, that should be between him and his insurance company. And if he's caught not wearing a helmet and the insurance company is encouraging him to, maybe the insurance company should say, you're only getting half of your rate that you paid for. Let the insurance company do it. Let the individual responsibility of the person take place here, not Big Brother always taking over.
I understand the freedoms, but there is a democracy too, and there are a pool of other people that sometimes have to foot the bill for other people's freedoms. I mean, in that case, do you have to look at common sense? And
Well, sure, you look at common sense. Is it wise to wear a seatbelt? Yes. However, there are also cases because they wore the seatbelt, they died. Most of the time, it's the other way around. I think the helmets are only good for a slow speed. And a lot of the accidents that occur at higher speeds on motorcycles. I'm not justifying the fact of not wearing a helmet. I'm just saying that should be between the individual person, his and insurance company. And I think the state has looked at this and thought we're losing enough money on tourism, and there's not that big a difference between other states that have the law. Maybe we should change the law, and it's going to get changed.
Transportation?
Yes, transportation funding. The governor came out with a whole series of suggestions a few weeks ago about how to fix the roads. He says there's our bridges and highways need about $1.4 billion.
Sure.
You want to take some money out of, I believe, the general fund to spend here?
Well, there's several different things I want to
Okay.
do. First of all, I don't want to raise taxes in recession. People say, well, our taxes haven't been raised on fuel, but they actually have. It's called Proposition A. Basically, what you got is 18.4 cents a gallon for federal. You get 19 cents a gallon you're paying for your state tax, but then we got 6% sales tax on top of all that. That brings your gas tax to about 56 cents a gallon, which is higher than all the other states. There are ways I can get that money without raising taxes. It's called prioritization spending.
All right. Jim Harger, Grand Rapids Press, thank you for joining us. And State Representative Dave Agema, Republican, Granville, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next week on West Michigan Week.